Welcome to another edition of the Harmon Solar Podcast. I'm Rob Romano, VP of Sales and Marketing at Harmon Solar, alongside my partner, Ben Wolschlager. He's, well, you kind of know him as Mr. Everything. I've kind of reduced him to project manager on our screen, but because he's not really doing everything anymore. He's kind of pulled back a little bit, so he's taken the title away from him.
Mr. Some Things.
Mr. Some Things.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk with a real estate expert.
Yep.
We've never done this before.
Best time to learn now. Just do it.
We've wanted to do it. We've talked about it. So,
because buying a home with solar or selling a home with solar, it's very important to know what's going on.
And we got a guy.
We always have a guy.
We both know this guy.
You don't have your shirt on, though. I mean, I got a guy shirt.
Oh, yeah. Is my hair showing?
No. You got to wear I got a
shirt on.
You're good.
Scared me a second there. I was like, I can forget.
Today is Black Shirt Thursday here on the Harmon Solar Podcast.
So our guest today is Michael Wiley of HomeSmart Realty and the Michael Wiley team. And I think you're based out of Goodyear, right?
Yes, sir.
Right? So you're all over the internet. People see you. I see you doing your stuff all the time.
Oh, yeah. We do a lot of marketing, a lot of social media stuff.
I know you're involved with some different schools and some different things. I've seen you, doing that. So Michael's an expert.
Yeah.
He's an expert. He's been in the industry for how many years?
Been in the industry 17 years, real estate. And as you know, I also sold solar. So I have a perspective on both sides.
That's true. So that's what makes him unique and why we brought him into this, because he can give us the reality of what's really going on the real estate side of all this.
Yeah, because I know a lot of real estate agents, they don't know a whole lot about solar. So why not have a guy that knows solar and knows real estate for our podcast?
Probably the biggest negative of bringing Michael on is he's a Bills fan.
Yeah, but that's a different podcast.
We've learned to deal with that. Yeah. I mean, it's okay. They lost 4 in a row, so it is what it is.
Hey, I was at a lot of those games, those playoff games. That was tough.
And you're still alive.
I'm still alive, yeah.
And he decided to move to Arizona
to get as far away from it as possible. So tell us about, you work at HomeSmart. Tell us about your role there, your team. What do you just kind of give us an idea. Give us a little feel for Michael Wiley.
Yeah. So just going back, I was a teacher for a long time, high school teacher, coach, and I got into real estate, which was a great transition. So basically I'm a team leader. I run my own team. Been there 18 years, going on 18 years, and seen the different markets. I came into the market when there was the largest crash in real estate history. The economy went...
And you stuck around.
Yeah, and I remember when I was coming in, everybody was like, what are you doing getting into real estate? And I was like, well, if nobody wants to come in, now's the time.
Now's the time to do it, yeah.
Right.
And then, as I went through real estate and started to grow my team and my business, solar came around. Mm-hmm. So I got into solar, and great story about that. How I got connected with you guys. A good friend of mine, somebody door knocked on his house from Solar City,
right? And
he was listening to what he had to say, and so he said, "You need to talk to my buddy. My buddy's in real estate." So I'm following energy, right? Because it affects real estate. So I connected with this guy, met with him. At the time, he was a manager for Solar City. He was running a sales team. And so I joined on board with Solar City at that time. And they had great training, like just talking about offset, the slope of the roof. You had to draw your own systems. Like there was so much that went into solar at that time that I didn't understand, but I had to learn it, and their training was really good. So I went out and did that. And then as I got to see, and nothing against Solar City, but as I got to see kind of what was out there, and I got to see what was out there through real estate. So as I was selling and buying homes, I was seeing different solar products, right? Mm-hmm. And there was one product that kept coming up, and it was Harmon. And you guys were so much lower than the rest.
Wow.
At that time, it was fixed rate leases, which I totally believed in. Yeah. And you guys were I remember seeing one of the first deals, it was like 8.5 cents a kilowatt fixed for 20 years. And I said, wow, that's incredible. So I ended up reaching out to you guys and then learn more about your business. And I'm big on, because my reputation and my name is everything in real estate. And I would never put anything on anybody's roof that you wouldn't call me to sell your home.
Right.
Because I make a lot more money in real estate than I did selling solar, but I saw a benefit there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to get the word out to my clients, which I did. I put solar on a lot of people's houses back then. And then everything changed in 2017. But you guys always did a great job from your process to the install. And, clients always felt good about it, and there were never any issues. And there were a lot of issues with other solar companies. So that was really important to me to put my name behind something. Plus, you had great pricing.
Right. Yeah. To give perspective, when he says that fixed leasing at 8.5 cents, that's like getting a gas card that's guaranteed at, let's say, 99 cents a gallon for the next 20 years.
Right.
That's kind of the territory that would be in. That's just crazy, right?
It's crazy.
And that's kind of like what I have in my house. I have an 8-cent lease guaranteed for 20 years. I mean, it's just a no-brainer.
Imagine getting gas for 99 cents a gallon.
For 20 years.
For 20 years.
And, and I use the analogy when I would sit down with my clients. I would say, guys, okay, here's what this is. This is a fixed rate mortgage at 2.5%, 3%. Or do you want a variable rate mortgage with APS at 5%?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And when I explained it to them that way, they were like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And so it was, let's do it.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way. That's actually pretty smart.
Would you like to sell solar again?
Yeah. So real estate's interesting for us in solar because there's a lot of real estate agents that don't have a clue about solar. They just don't, right? I mean, I'm sure you've run into that in your business where people that just know nothing about it. I don't know how your team is, if they're educated on it, but there's a lot of real estate agents that just don't know.
Yeah, that's the problem in the industry. I feel like agents don't, there's kind of a negative connotation, which I hate that because then it kind of gives solar a bad vibe. And I love solar. I think there's a lot of benefits to solar. And I think it's just a matter of agents being educated on solar. That's probably the biggest problem.
Yeah. And I would say when they're not educated, which a lot of them are not, I would say a high percentage, it's instantly solar's looked at as a negative, no matter what.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the fact that some solar is a negative.
Sure.
There's no doubt. We talk about that all the time, even just without.
We'll be transparent with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how we are, guys.
Yeah.
So we're gonna tell you. But there are situations, and we'll get into that Mike's run into, where it's very negative, but there are situations where it's very positive.
Yeah. And we get customers that call into us that they'll say, hey, I'm going to be selling my house. It has solar, or vice versa. Hey, I'm going to be buying a house that has solar. Can you tell me about it? And we're like, we're solar experts, but we're not real estate experts.
Right.
So you need to talk to your real estate agent. We'll give you all the information about the solar system itself, but as far as like the value of it or how to sell it or how to buy it, we can't go into that. So you need to talk to your real estate agent about that. So that's why we have someone here to kind of give you that information.
And he's a hybrid because he knows solar.
He's a hybrid. He knows both. Yeah.
Which there's very few of out there. I know of one other one. That's it. Probably just one other guy that I know
There's
of.
2 in Arizona.
Yeah, his real estate company is focused on just that, solar homes. But yeah, he's only 2 guys that I know about. And that's interesting. So you get a client and wants to sell that wants to buy a house. No, forget that. You give a client that wants to sell a house and they have solar on their house. How does that change in the way you're going to market the house and the things you're going to do with that client versus somebody that doesn't have solar?
Sure. So the first thing is I need to look at their solar agreement and see all the numbers, the benefits. I want to see their energy bills because I need to paint a picture. I need to be able to educate agents who are bringing buyers to this property on the solar system, be able to sell the solar system. Because honestly, you can't really sell the house without being able to sell the solar system. So what I like to do is I like to get all those numbers, and I'll actually create like a sheet that shows the benefits of the solar, the savings, what the costs are, what your future costs are if you continue with APS. So how you can save money in the future with the solar. And then I think once you have that transparent and people can see it and you can explain it to them, then they are definitely more open to the solar and they actually like the idea of solar.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
as long as it's a good deal, right?
It's good. It's not like when people put a pool in their house. You go out there and like, oh yeah, there's a pool and it's going to add value to my house. It's pretty easy to sell. Like solar is very intricate. If you've been watching our podcasts, it's very case specific to your home and your needs and things like that. So, someone that's buying or selling a home with solar, you need to know what those details are.
That's a really good point because we talk about it's not cookie cutter.
Right.
So if your habits are different than the guy you're buying from's habits, it's going to be a different situation.
Right.
If that guy works at home all day and he's constantly home and using his power that way, and you're somebody that's never home, different scenarios for you.
Yeah, so. I know I've walked into some homes that they're trying to sell the home and they have their just their bills laid out and like, oh, this person has solar and look at they don't pay anything for electricity, and I'm like, it's a little misleading because they didn't pay anything for electricity. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm not going to pay anything for electricity. Right. It's how they use power versus how I use power. So you have to kind of go into more details of, okay, what is the system? How big is the system? How much does it produce? how old is it? All the different details. You can't just, as an agent, just show, here are their bills.
Right.
And you should expect the same.
Yeah, and if I could touch on that one more thing, you brought up a good point. Because also the rate plan that you're on, right?
Exactly.
And that's another big factor.
Huge factor.
Because if you're grandfathered in under a rate plan before 2017, that transfers over to the new buyer. And it's very important that the buyer's agent knows that and tells their client that. And you need to be able to show those benefits. So, yeah, I think it's just a matter of really being able to educate the buyer agent and their clients beforehand. And it's key to be proactive and do it up front, because what happens in a lot of solar or real estate transactions is agents don't know, they don't show the benefits, they don't know how to articulate it, and then a buyer gets under contract and the deal can fall out in the inspection once they do find out and have to do the transfer of the solar lease. So you don't want that kind of headache, and that's where it gets a negative connotation, I feel, because some of these steps aren't done up front.
Yeah.
So if I'm a buyer looking for a house that has solar on it, I like your approach. You're saying basically you're creating this whole spreadsheet or whatever it is. It sounds like you, obviously, with your spreadsheets. But you're creating this whole document to be able to show and educate people on how the benefit of the solar in this house, how it works and what it means. You're having those conversations, correct?
All up front.
Yeah, up front. So key.
If I walk into a house and I'm getting basically, hey, there's my bills, and the agent's not talking about it, it's probably instant red flag. Could be.
It could be. It could be.
I mean, it depends. If he doesn't understand solar, then he doesn't know how to market it.
That's
right.
correct.
So that could be that. Or like we talked about before we did this podcast, there's a lot of deals out there from back 2017 and prior, especially. But that was when we were lease heavy in Phoenix.
Yes.
A lot of Sunrun leases, a lot of Solar City leases, and they're not good. They have what's called an escalator where they go up 2.9%. The payment does every year for 20 years. So you got to start factoring that in. And then a lot of them were sold at a very high price because some of these solar people were trying to make a lot of money. We talk about that all the time, right? So you get the combination of trying to make a lot of money, putting that escalator on it. Now these are bad leases where they're not going to be beneficial to anybody that walks into this house. I've had friends of mine come to me and say, hey, I bought this house. Take a look at this lease. And I'm looking at it going, yikes. This is not good for you. Maybe you should have talked to me beforehand.
Did you already buy the house?
Yeah. It's too late, right?
You already have the keys?
There's not a whole lot you can do about it at that point.
Yeah.
You're kind of...
I think it's important for that real estate agent to be educated too in the solar system, because they're already educated in just the market, the house and all that. If you have a buyer, let's say, coming from out of state, so they move to a new neighborhood and they have no idea what it's like living in Arizona. They're brand new, so they don't know anything.
Right.
I'm sure they're asking you questions like, how are the schools here? What's the crime rate in this neighborhood? All this stuff. So if you start asking, what utility company is this? How am I getting it billed? What is my solar system going to do? And you as a real estate agent, you're like, I don't know. It's not a good look on you.
One thing I'd like to touch on, I don't think a lot of people know about this, talking about solar, but real estate in general, 95% of the business is done by 5% of the agents.
Wow.
So I get it all the time, like, oh, so-and-so's a realtor.
So you don't do anything. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
he doesn't do anything.
Well, he's a realtor, but he did 3 deals.
Yeah.
Right. And the industry's set up that way. It's kind of an easy entry, which the reason I bring that up is because if you're not doing this stuff day in and day out, you're not seeing these different solar deals, you're not a professional, it's kind of hard to help somebody, not just on the real estate side, but now you're adding solar to it. That's why I feel like there's a lot of uneducated agents not able to help their clients.
Do you service the entire valley?
Yes.
So good to know.
Yeah.
Because just what I'm hearing from you, and obviously I already know you, so I'm a little biased, but just hearing the things you're saying, if I'm a homeowner and I want to buy a home that has solar on it, or if I'm going to sell a home that has solar on it, I need to talk to you and your team.
100%.
I'm not going to talk to anybody else because of all the things we're starting to put out here. That's just bad.
Sure.
That's really bad. So you need to call Mike Wiley and the Mike Wiley team. You'd be dumb not to.
Yeah, especially in this market, because as we've touched on many, many times, there are shady companies out there, putting things on your roof that shouldn't be there, whether it's unpermitted or not, or whatever, or it's a bad deal. Having someone educated take a look at it before you buy or sell it. You need to have someone in this market.
It's important, right?
Yeah.
It's an extra step. So you deal, I'm sure, a lot with appraisers.
Yes. Appraisers in solar it's challenging because the lender orders the appraiser.
Right.
And so I don't have a lot of access to them.
Okay.
Right beforehand. I could send them a recommendation, and sometimes we do have to do that, especially if it's an owned solar system. But I don't have like a lot of access to appraisers in general.
Okay. All right, so I won't go down that road.
but I have something to talk about when you're buying solar that's very important. Here's another thing that happens. When I sit down with a client and we get them prepared to go out and look at homes, we want to see what they could afford or what they're comfortable in their payment, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so now if we're looking at homes with solar and it has like a graduated lease on it, they now have to count that payment against their debt to income ratio, which lowers their buying power. And I've actually had agents go out and they're showing, say, a listing like mine that might be a $500,000 listing. And that client can't even qualify for that home if my house has a graduated solar lease on it, meaning it's an escalator and goes up, right?
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, explain what a graduated solar lease is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you need to prep your client. You need to know that information. Don't waste their time driving them around looking at something that they can't even look at, right?
Right.
So what I always do is I'll look at the house ahead of time. Ben, you know this. And I pull the solar agreement, get all the information from the agent. Even if they don't have it uploaded, I'll get it. Then I'll send it to my client. We'll talk to the lender. Is this going to affect their payment? Yes, it is. Okay, so what could they qualify? So if you like this house, now it changed. And here's the thing about it. It's not that it's the worst thing, guys, okay? And the reason I say that, it still might be cheaper than APS.
Right.
Right? Long term, you're controlling your cost. It is affecting your real estate, but you'd have an energy bill anyways.
Right.
The difference is they don't count your SRP or APS bill against you in your debt to income ratio, but if you have a great, and you need to understand that formula.
Yeah.
In that scenario, could you make it a condition where the homeowner has to pay off the lease as part of the sale?
I actually had that happen, yeah. Pay off a lease on a buyout, negotiate the lease. These are things that I've done personally and seen happen.
Yeah, so it's going to be something that I don't know if we were going to get into it later, but what happens when you do buy a house that has a solar system that is financed or leased, or it's an escalating lease? Does the homeowner have to buy this off or pay it off before it sells, or can it transfer to the new owner, or can they negotiate the price down to assume it? And what are the options that they have?
And it's kind of like in real estate. On the resale market, we have a standard contract through the Arizona Association of Realtors, and I can tell you verbatim what that is. When we're dealing with builders, they all have their own contracts. It's kind of the same thing in solar. When I see a house that has solar, I have to pull the contract. I have to read through that contract because they're all different. So it just depends on a case-by-case scenario. But let's say there is an example of a house that has a solar lease or some type of solar on it. There is the ability to buy it out, and sometimes that does get negotiated up front.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to do if I sell my house. I'm just going to pay it off.
Right.
And just sell it as, hey, it's just a benefit. It's sitting here saving you money. It's not going to cost you anything. That to me is a very positive.
Yeah.
I would agree, right?
100%.
Yeah, it's like a prepaid lease. It's the same thing.
Like a prepaid lease.
Right. But if you're like, I have $5,000 left on my loan for my solar system, I don't have the cash to pay it off, I'll just roll it into the sale of the home or drop my price by $5,000 to kind of make up that, and it'll be paid off once the home closes type deal.
And great point. And it also, the real estate market factors into that, right? When the real estate market's hot, when COVID hit and the market went up, they had leverage. So with solar, that you're going to buy that house and do the graduate lease or whatever that is. But now that the market's softer, it's a buyer's market. It's hard enough to sell the home if there's solar and you're trying to negotiate value. It does make it tougher.
So it all does depend on the market conditions.
100%.
All right. So we're not. I'm going to clarify here. We're not sitting here saying solar is a bad thing.
Right.
You don't want to have it on your home, or you don't want to buy a house with solar. It's just a lot of There's a ton of variables.
It's the common theme with all of our podcasts.
Everything we talk about. There's always variables. There's going to be times where it's going to be tougher because of market conditions. And right now, market conditions are kind of soft.
Yeah.
That's about to change, I would assume, after the election. I think things are going to get better next year.
It's funny. Since the election, I've already had a listing that was sitting with no showings. I've had 2 showings in the last 2 days.
Instantly, right? Because now people are instantly feeling good about things and thinking, hey, the economy is going to rebound. I can start spending money. Right. Yeah. Everything changes based on perception. So that's the perception.
Yeah, and I think all this is important too, just as a homeowner in general who is looking to add solar to their home. If you're wanting to get solar and you're like, but I'm only going to be in my home for another 5 or 6 years. Okay, take that into consideration, with your system size, and, talk to your real estate agent like, hey, I'm here in the home now. I want to add solar, but I'm only going to be here about 5 or 6 years. What should I do? What should I look for? How can we sell this later on when I already do have a system?
And that is so important. And that's even a bigger reason why you have to make sure the company you're talking to about solar knows what they're doing and is not trying to take advantage of you. Because if they take advantage of you, you might be sitting on a brick.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I ask too. When I'm talking with customers, I always tell them, how long do you plan on being in the home?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to design a system that's going to be for you to be there forever. If it's going to be just kind of a general system for whoever takes over the home next, then we'll make it work that way.
And it makes you make a decision on if you want to lease, do you want to finance it, do you want to pay cash for it. We always say cash is king, and it's always going to be the best scenario where you run into a home that's got a bought and sold. It's a bought system that's paid for. That's even easier for you to sell.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, it's a huge benefit.
Right. So I guess I just want to make those points. Is it all matters? The variables are all there, right? If the system's owned and paid for, that's a value to that home.
Yep.
People are going to want that. If it's a lease and you can pay it off in the transaction, however, there's a value there. If it's financed, you can even pay it off in the transaction as well if it's financed too, right?
And another thing to touch on that's important that I see is the tax credit. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So here's what happens. If I see a solar system on a house, say I represent a buyer, and that seller did not take the tax credit and pay down the principal, then that might not be a good solar deal for that next buyer.
Sure.
But if they took the tax credit, they applied it to the principal, I would say most times that ends up being a pretty good solar situation, right? So there's a lot of things that go into it.
So we've talked about that before, just to clarify, and that's a really good point, actually. When you get a system and you finance it, those first 18 months we talked about where your payment's here, right? It's a lower payment. It's a good payment for you. If that person doesn't take the tax credit that they're getting off of buying that system and put it back into that loan, it reamortizes. And when it reamortizes, it typically goes up quite a bit. It goes up that 30% that you didn't pay back. And now your payment goes from, I'll just speed out. Let's say you were $120 a month. Now you might be $200 a month.
Yeah, and that's something you're now paying.
Right.
Because the homeowner didn't take the tax credits, you're now paying for that.
So it might be a good idea to kind of look, when you look at when paperwork and say, okay, what's the payment on this solar system? What's it producing, and kind of try to put that together. And I'm sure that's probably what you do to figure out what they're paying per kilowatt hour, because what is APS average right now is what, 16 cents, 16.5 cents on average.
Sure.
If you have a solar system where you're paying that or more, probably not a really good idea. But if you're paying less than that, you're saving money. Okay, well then you can count that. Hey, over the next period of years that as I buy this house, I'm going to save money on electricity because of X, Y, Z. So you need someone that knows what they're doing. It's the more I'm thinking about it, man, it's just so important to have a guy like Michael and his team, because you could really get in a bad way real quick.
Yeah. No, it's good having all that knowledge, because I know there's times where, I was shopping for a home with Mike, and I would say, hey, I like this home. Let's take a look at this. It has a solar system. Send me all their information. I take a look and I go, I no longer like the home. Yeah. Because it was just a bad deal, and I don't want to assume that bad deal. But then there was other times where like, okay, I like this home. Send me the information on their solar system. I look at it and I go, okay, this was actually a good deal. Everything looks legit. Okay, now this home still is, a good deal. So,
and guys, something else to talk about, what's out there, and we know this because we put a lot of them on myself. Those fixed leases from before 2017, fixed rate leases. If you get into one of those right now at the 8 cents, 9 cents, 10 cents range, you're saving almost 50% on your energy bill. That's nice savings in today's market.
Oh yeah,
and there's a lot of those out there. So the things to look for, just to clarify, is if you find somebody that has a prepaid lease, basically they don't pay anything anymore. They paid it all up front, right?
It's like a cash purchase.
Right. It's like a cash purchase, and you're just sitting there getting the benefit of the power for 20 years, however long years are left. If you have a fixed rate lease, where like I do, I have an 8 cent a kilowatt hour lease. It doesn't change for 20 years. It's 8 cents. It's that gas card at 99 cents.
Right.
That's just nothing but a benefit. So you have to look at the kind of lease somebody's in, or the kind of situation purchase-wise that they're in, to determine if it's good or bad for you. Because it's going to be good and it's going to be bad depending on all these variables, again, that we always talk about. So a lot of people out there, when I say real estate agents aren't educated, a lot of them aren't, and they're just going to poo-poo solar the minute they hear. Because you know what? They don't want to deal with it. Because they have to do all the stuff that Mike's talking about to really understand the situation, right? You might get somebody that wants to sell their house, and you might look at this and go, this is not a good thing.
That's right. It happens all the time.
And then you got to either put a plan together to figure out how to make it a good thing, or maybe you have to even walk away from it. I don't know if you have, but it becomes a tough sell.
Well, I've had to negotiate out of it because I haven't been able to sell the house. So that's another thing. If somebody's in a bad solar deal, we have options. And with, my knowledge and background in solar, I've been able to negotiate out of those deals in order to sell the house, or else they can't sell their house.
Do you actually contact the lenders or the lease companies?
Both.
Yeah?
Depending on the deal.
Wow.
How do they respond? I know that Sunrun was big back in 2017, them in Solar City, and I know there's people sold a ton of leases back in 2017 and 16. And a lot of them did those graduated leases where they're going up every year, and they were at 2.9%. And I know Sunrun actually had to come in and make them zero escalated leases because they were so bad for people because of how high these dirty people sold them for.
Yep.
And so they did their part. I give them credit for that. They actually helped out to try to help the customers out so they can sell the homes and be in better situations. So yeah, there's so much to look at when you're buying a home with solar.
And another thing too, guys, is, and this is what I love about your company, is when I sell a house or I represent a buyer and it has solar, you guys do the inspections.
Right.
And you've been around. That's another big deal of getting your solar system inspected before you're going to make this purchase.
Yeah, so just like they do home inspections, we do the solar inspections, right? So real estate agents will give us a call and we'll go out there for a fee. We'll go out there and we provide a complete report of what we found with the system. Is it working? Is it not working? Things that it might need. I don't know if you've done some of them with us.
You guys have done some for me. In fact, you guys did one. It was the Phoenix Mercury coach, the coach before. You did her house. She had a beautiful home. She had a really big solar system, and you guys came out, did a great job inspecting it. There were a few things that needed to be fixed or adjusted, and the seller was able to take care of it, and everything worked out great.
Yeah, if you're a buyer and you're buying a house in solar and you don't get it inspected, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, you're getting everything else inspected.
As
right?
is.
Yeah.
Get it inspected because you'd be surprised at things that we find sometimes. And it's very important to know that up front. And it's such a minimal fee, just like a home inspection, just like everything else you do at home. You should be doing this automatically.
Speaking of those home inspections, I know there are home inspectors that, do the whole home. Do you find that there are home inspectors now looking at solar to their tool belt, or they just kind of say, not my wheelhouse, I'm not going to do it?
My inspector is very good about that. He does look at it, just like very minimal, and he'll always recommend getting a professional company like yourself to do a thorough inspection.
Okay.
But he'll give you kind of like an overview. I didn't see anything from the outside. No panels are broken, no loose wires, that type of thing. But very, very minimal.
Okay.
Right, because we're going to get in there and we're going to actually run system tests. We're going to make sure all the inverters are working. We're going to make sure the panels are still producing.
Right.
There's a lot of things you can't see just by doing a visual inspection. So you can see that stuff, but there's so much more.
Okay.
That's one product that I really think we finally, gosh, in 2017, we were talking about that. And we finally put it out. It took us a few years to get there. But it's such a great product. I mean, I know when I sell my house as a seller, I would want to have that report done, and I would want to have that on the table and say, here's our solar system, and here's the report we did on it. I don't know if you do that, but that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
I'm going to hire you, so you're just going to do it anyway.
I've recommended that to some clients, and we haven't had a situation. Because the other thing you got to remember, too, guys, when you're on leases, and maybe you guys could talk more on this or teach me, this is something that I don't 100% know, but with these leases, they're fully warranted by these companies.
Yeah, they have a production guarantee.
Now, so the key is that they're still in business, right?
Yeah.
As long as they're still around, that's a big problem.
Sure.
So as long as they're still around, there's an issue. They have to come out and fix it because of the guaranteed production in the lease. I understand that piece. So getting an inspection at that time, I don't know if that's necessarily you have to on that type of solar, right? A lease per se, because it's warranted, guaranteed. They need to come fix it anyway. So if it's not producing, you let them know, they'll come fix it. But on any purchases or anything like that or warrant, right? Like I think it's huge because
no one's monitoring it.
Exactly. Or even if they are monitoring it, there might be something wrong with it that is about to go out or whatever that is. And the inverters might not be in warranty. Is that still the case? Inverters are a big expense.
Yeah. Well, if they're under warranty, they're obviously taken care of. But yeah, it is one of the most popular things to go out of your system, your inverter.
It will go out.
Yeah.
It will go out.
The difference is now you have the string inverters from back when you were really doing it in the 2017. Micro inverters, the ones that are on the panels, have gotten more popular.
Yeah.
Those have a 25-year warranty on them. So those are, they're going to go out because they're out there in the sun on the roof. I mean, they're going to go out, and they do. but they're warranted for 25 years, so you're good to go no matter what. It's going to be covered. The string inverters will go out about every 10 to 12 years. That's what they do. So if you have a lease, that's a valid point. If you have a lease, you're okay. As long as it transfers to you, you're good to go. It's covered. Remember, it's not your system. It belongs to the leasing company. You're just buying the power. So they're going to make sure to maintain that system, that it's working, because that's how this thing works. But on a financed or a cash, whatever, if it's already paid for, you need to protect yourself and make sure this thing's working, because the cost comes back to you.
Yep.
So, and if, if it's an owned system too, I mean, the warranty might cover the part, but it won't cover the labor. So a lot of them will cover the labor for the first 5 years, and they won't cover labor anymore. So an inverter goes out, they'll put a new inverter up there, but you're paying to actually do the job. They're just going to pay for the part. So you got to look at all that stuff.
Sure.
It's very important.
Makes sense.
Most people don't think about that. They think, oh, it's covered. No,
It's covered.
the part's covered.
It's bumper to bumper.
Yeah, bumper to bumper. And that's exactly how they sell it. They sell it as a bumper to bumper, but it's not, because the labor is only
Because solar
1 to
systems
5 years.
don't have bumpers.
In Arizona, you only have to do, I think it's a 1 or 2 year labor warranty on anything you do.
Yeah.
So just so you know that, we have a workmanship warranty now that's 25 years. I mean, our warranties have gone through the roof, right? So we have penetration for 30, workmanship for 25. Nobody does that. But we're so confident in what we're doing and how we do it that we can do that.
Yeah.
So that's what makes Harmon different.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are a roofing and electrical company too that does solar. So those are all very important pieces of the process.
Yeah.
What happens, curious, when the lease is over? So let's say, for example, like I got a 20-year prepaid lease on my roof, and that 20 years is up. What's going to happen to my system? How does that work?
I gotta be real careful with my answer here. You never know who's listening. The correct answer is look at your contract, because on every lease it has what happens at the end of the contract, and you have to kind of go by those terms. So your options usually on all your leases are at the end of the contract. You can either renew it on like a year by year basis. You can buy the system out at fair market value. So they'll come out appraising, oh, this system is worth this, you can pay for it. Or the leasing company will remove it from your roof at no cost to you. So those are pretty much your options that's spelled out on the paperwork.
Yeah. So just a couple points of that. When they remove it, they have to put the roof back to condition.
Correct.
So they have to seal the hole. They can't just say, okay, see, we're ripping this thing off.
So think about that. They have to roll trucks out.
Right.
Pull that stuff off your roof, all the wires,
Seal
inverters, all seal your roof, put it all back together. That's not something that's done for free. They have to pay for that.
Right.
So a company has to come out and do that and pay for it.
This is where fair market value comes in.
Right.
Do you think that a solar company or a leasing company wants to pay for that?
Probably not.
Absolutely.
And then
not.
what are they going to do with those 40 modules that are 20 years
210s.
that are 20 years old?
Right.
I always tell people it's not like leasing a car.
Right.
When you lease a car and is at your end of your 2 or 3 year lease, that company can still sell that used car. It still has a value. Does anyone, Ralph, are we selling 20-year-old panels at Harmon?
Every day.
So you have a 20-year-old
day.
system that was specifically designed for you and your home. 20-year-old system, 20-year-old inverters, 20-year-old wiring, 20-year-old everything.
Right.
Who's going to buy it? There's no value. So they spent all that money taking it off your roof, and now the company's stuck with this 20-year-old system.
So let's clarify. There's no value to the next person to sell that to.
Right.
There is value to the home it sits on.
the home it sits on, yeah.
Because when I rip it off, that rail is wasted. I don't need that rail anymore.
Because that was designed for your house.
All right, those panels are now, they've derated 20 years down, so they're not producing what they were producing 20 years ago. Still valuable to that home, but not to sell.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. So with all that said, fair market value is probably $1.
Probably $1.
Seriously, it's probably going to be somewhere they're going to say, "Here's $1, sign this, we're done."
Yeah,
I don't see them doing anything else with it.
Exactly. I think at the end of those leasing terms, the leasing company is going to go, you know what? We took a look at this and pay us $1 and we'll call it a day. It's yours.
Yeah. And I think we're probably
we're getting close.
7, 8 years away, 6 years away.
Well, leasing started around 2005, 2006. So those 20-year leases are
coming up. It's coming up soon.
It's next year and the year after.
We're just hitting it for the first time.
We're going to find out what they're actually going to do.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to see is saying, "Hey, keep it. Send me $1."
Everyone's happy. We've already made our money. You made your savings.
And if you don't want it on your house, then you just tell them, "Get it off my house." They have to.
Yeah.
There's no way around it. Definitely what I would tell you to do against, don't sign a 1-year re-up.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Do not do that.
They want it. They want you to do that because it's extra money for them. But
don't do that.
But the most important thing is read your contract. And every leasing contract, it has those clauses of what happens at the end of the lease. So make sure you know what's going to happen at the end of your lease.
That's a very good point. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. No, it totally answered my question. So the fair market thing, I think I like, because I was like, they're not going to come take this thing off my roof.
No. Why would they?
Yeah, why would they?
Right. And then someone mentioned roofs. What were we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about roofs.
Tax credit, roof.
So you're buying a home. It's an older home. It's got an older roof. It has a solar system, or I'm thinking about getting a solar system. Should I replace the roof now before when I buy my home, when I'm adding the solar? What's the process? What's the order? Should I buy the home, add the roof, then the solar, or should I try to wrap it all in once? What do I do?
Well,
what's the best way to do it?
The best way to do it in the city of Phoenix, where it's 100 billion degrees every year, and everything gets worn down outside. So your roofs here don't last very long. Probably 10 years max.
Before it has to, underlayment has to be done.
Do new home developers, give 5-10 years on roofs?
It's 10-year roof warranty typically. I think the underlayment usually is 20 to 25 years.
Yeah, typically.
Yeah, the underlayment.
The shingles, forget it. They ain't going to last.
Shingles, different story.
Everyone's tile now. Yeah.
Right. So when you've had a roof, and the average house that we probably see that wants solar is typically 20 years old. That's typical, right?
Okay.
I mean, they're 20-year-old. A lot of them haven't been re-roofed.
Sure, yeah.
And the customer is always like, I want to put solar on this. And we inspect the roofs. We always inspect the roofs because we have to put a 30-year penetration on it. We want to make sure it's not going to leak.
Right.
So if we see that, hey, this thing, it's brittle and we're not messing with it. But I would highly recommend that if you're in a house 15, 20 years and you want solar, you should probably do the re-roof right there and then.
Right.
Roll it into the whole transaction.
Yep.
Because I think, according to what the IRS code is, and again, I'm not a tax expert. I'm not giving you tax advice.
I thought you were.
Ben's definitely not a tax expert, but he'll still give you tax advice.
What?
But you need to talk to your accountants.
Yeah.
But understanding is what I believe is that you can then get the 30% tax credit on that re-roof.
Right.
You could roll it in because it is part of the installation of the solar system. Again, I'm not saying that's 100%. You need to talk to your tax guy or talk to Ben. I'm going to keep putting it on you.
Flash my phone number.
We'll do that. But that makes a re-roof 30% cheaper. That's
right. If you were
just kind of smart.
If you were just to go out and re-roof it itself, you wouldn't get that. But if you're adding solar to it, now you get that.
Because remember now,
it's part of the package.
If you add solar to a bad roof, and 3 years from now it's raining, which it barely rains here, but when it does get the monsoon season and rains, and all of a sudden it's dripping in your house, now you got a re-roof.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe there's an added expense to removing those panels while you're doing the re-roof? Yes, there is.
We just talked about that. We don't remove panels for free.
Right. It's not free. Yeah. It's quite expensive.
And that adds value to the home. Like, hey, I have a solar system and a new roof. But when I got my solar system, I've got the new roof. There's value there.
That's when I see a really good situation, right?
Yeah.
You did the roof, you got the solar, you got the tax credit.
Yeah.
And something, honestly, I think too, I don't know if there's any research on this, but I think the solar probably protects your underlayment and you get longer longevity out of your roof, I would
I've been
imagine.
saying that for years. People say there's no proof. But obviously, it's covering the roof. It's preventing the heat from going in, the way it used.
The panels are taking all the damage.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, the panels are taking the damage.
I would think that's true. So, yeah, these are basically roof covers.
Yeah.
Roof savers.
Can I have a shade canopy over my modules as well to protect those?
Absolutely. Because the ultraviolet rays will still come true.
Right.
Some we didn't talk about, guys, I think is important is the pigeon.
Oh, yeah.
Pigeon guards.
And
that's a really good point because I'm sure that you come up against that sometimes.
all the time. Yeah, all the time.
So we all know that pigeons love to nest and they like to nest under panels. I found that out right away when I put my solar up.
The hard way?
This is a pigeon neighborhood.
Yeah.
And as soon as I put it up, I didn't have it took them a few weeks to get the stuff around it. And man, it was a zoo down there.
You just start hearing in
There were pigeons everywhere, and then right over my bedroom. I just wanted to go up there and start shooting. It was, and it started making a mess over the side of the house and everything.
And they could get into the wires, because they're going to be nesting, and there's those home runs and the wires under there that pigeons can, they don't know what they're doing.
What we do is we go to your system and we put netting. It's a plastic mesh or a steel mesh. I think it's more steel. And it goes completely around the arrays that we put on your roof, and this way the pigeons can't get underneath there. Yep. Funny story is I remember somebody that did that one time when there was a pigeon under there and they forgot about him and they covered him up. And they left him in there.
Now you have a pet
trapped.
We didn't do it, but eventually they had to go up and get him. So get him out. He was trapped.
Pigeon. Yeah.
He was totally trapped.
Nice little pet.
But I'm sure you run into homes and neighborhoods where you see that there's pigeon, stuff. I was going to say the wrong word.
Yes.
There's pigeon stuff all over the floor, the side of the house. They're eating up the wires. And they're just everywhere on that house
all the time.
Yeah, and that's just bad. Mm-hmm. You have to know it. You know if you're in a pigeon neighborhood,
right?
You just know it. If you've been there at least a month, you know it. I know I am. I hate it. So you have to protect the system against it. It's just another thing. And also, a lot of the systems we do today, it just seems like more and more they're getting the actual electrical panel upgrades. So when you're getting a new solar system, a new roof, a new electrical panel upgrade, it's all value, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting it done for cheaper by doing it with the solar system than you are doing it
separately. Yeah.
Can you get a tax credit on that? Again, talk to your tax professional. It's part of the transaction. So yeah, I mean, technically, but I didn't say that.
Right. Ralph does my taxes, by the way.
That's why you're in jail half the time.
I get audited every other month.
So I think the point of this podcast, and number one, is to talk about the real estate perspective and what people think on that side of the business. And I think it's important to understand that if you're not educated on something, no matter who you are, you tend to probably just poo-poo it and say, yeah, I don't really know much about it, so I don't deal with that.
That or you get taken advantage of.
That was my next point.
Okay. You can go ahead and make it.
No, you already made it. I don't want to talk anymore.
Okay.
All right. So either you turn your back from it because you don't want to deal with it because you don't understand it and you don't want to take time to learn about it, or someone's going to take advantage of you, right? So you need, if you're going to do this, if you're going to buy a home with solar, if you're going to sell a home with solar, you have to have somebody that knows the industry, that understands solar and how it works, that knows what to look for. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I know everyone has their, my cousin's a real estate agent. He'll sell. I'm like, okay, yes, but you have solar in your home. Make sure your cousin knows what they're doing.
Well, and just speak to that. You just said this the other, a few minutes back, and I was on the podcast, but you said that,
95% of the business is done by 5% of the agents. It's crazy. In fact,
that's it.
I saw a stat. I don't have the research on this currently, but there was something like 22% of business in Phoenix is done by 3 real estate teams. And I won't mention those names. I'm not one of those teams, but they're big call centers. Is what they are, right? You're not getting necessarily that same attention. But the point is it's really important to have somebody that's a professional and is doing transactions day in and day out on a regular basis, especially when you're seeing solar and the different types of solar. How many solar companies are there in the Valley? Just over the years?
A couple hundred.
Come and go, right?
Yeah,
Fly by
especially
night.
lately, they've come and gone a lot.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of, and we're going to actually do a podcast that's going to touch on that, where we're going to talk about how a lot of these installers and companies have moved out of the market or have gone bankrupt or whatever, and what that means to the market and what that means to you if you have solar. But yeah, there's a ton of them. They're going out every year. We'll have 200-300 of them, and all of a sudden they're just gone. They just come in here. Biggest offender in this state, we're Arizona. We have a high power usage. People coming in from other states. Doing a cash grab, selling as much as they can, then leaving the state. And they don't care what they put on your roof, right? They partner with an installer. They just put what they can put on, and they're out and they make their money. Worst scenario for any customer to go through. And then those are the ones that you're going to see that there's bad deals.
Bad deals, yeah.
Bad deals. So there's good deals and there's bad deals. Like we always talk about, there's good solar system sales, there's bad solar system sales. And it impacts you down the road whether or not you want to sell this house. So you really need to be smart about who you're having put solar on your house.
Yep.
We do get that at Harmon, which is why we have these conversations and we put this out there. We want to arm you guys with this. And you have to have a real estate agent or a team that understands these things as well, or you're going to be in trouble. I wouldn't want to go into this without someone like you. I mean, I just wouldn't. I want you to do all the things that you know that you need to do to protect me and to help bring the right people in that want to buy this house for the right reasons. I don't want to screw anybody either, right? So
No, definitely not.
It's the
You're
same
just
thing.
lazy. You just want to pass.
I'm really lazy.
It's really not him doing the right thing. It's Ralph just like, someone else do it. Mike, you do it.
Well, I just know a lot of people out there have solar and they just don't understand it.
Yeah.
They just don't. I mean, like I said, friends of mine buying a house with solar and not talking to me about it. That's just not smart.
Right.
You know who you are.
Like you know what I do for a living, right?
I mean, you've got to ask the questions. You've got to leverage the experts. And that's why Harmon's around. And that's why Michael Wiley and his team are around. Those are the experts, right? So we brought in a real estate expert to kind of show. Are we missing anything? Is there anything we want to touch on? I think we've talked about a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff. Go back, rewind, keep watching. Not like a tape rewind, but you know what I'm saying. You can go.
Are we
back
going to have his contact information up?
Yeah, we're
reach
going
out.
at the end.
Is that okay, Mike?
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate that.
We're gonna put up Mike's name and his contact information. You can say it. They'll go ahead and say it. So if someone wants to reach you or your team, what do they do?
They can contact us. They can go to my website at michaelwileyteam.com. There's a contact there. My number's 480-343-4534. Or email me at mwiley@hsmove.com.
And that's all on the bottom of the screen right now. You see that information. I would highly recommend that you contact Michael if you're looking to buy a home that has solar, if you're looking to sell a home that has solar, or if you're just looking to buy or sell a home.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it has solar or not, but I mean, definitely if it has the solar stuff. So there's nobody else that I would call.
Yeah, and if you want solar, we find you a home and you guys can help put the solar on, and we could, find the right deal and package it up so it all works too.
So that's one last question.
There we go. We're not done yet, folks.
We're not done yet. If someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I want a home," getting a lot of people that come out of state, they come in here and they go, "I want to buy a home. I want solar on my home." What do you do? What would you ask? What questions do you ask? What's your process?
Yeah, and that does happen. So my process is, first thing, I educate them on solar and different options. Now I tell them, I am not a solar professional. I used to sell solar. I know enough to be dangerous, but I also have the resources, the people that I can connect you with, right? Which is where I would lean on you guys. But we'll talk about the benefits of solar, what that looks like, because you got to look at orientation of the roof, right? I mean, if you got a south-facing roof that has a lot of space, that's a good house for solar.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of different things that go into it, but I just try to educate them as much as I can, and then let them make informed decisions.
Yeah.
Pretty easy that way.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there could be a situation where, hey, maybe we can't find what you need with solar on it, but we'll get it put on there.
Or we'll get it put on.
You can help them with that too.
That's exactly how I approach it.
So there you go. You got this is the guy.
This is the guy.
I told you I got a guy. That's the guy.
I got a guy.
All right. Mike, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Michael.
Again, you guys need to reach out to him and his team if you're looking to buy or sell a home that has solar, or just, in real estate in general. We brought him on here for a reason. You know us, we only talk to the top tier people in the industries that we trust. And so Harmon can put a stamp of approval on his forehead and say, this is a real estate guy that we trust. So think about that. We'll be back next time. We got some really good topics to get into. We're going to talk about the market and what's changed in the solar market, a couple other things. So we'll be back. But hey, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.